Good evening. Brittany, can you hear me? Good evening. At 6 o'clock, I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. If you would, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you'll remain standing for the invocation.
Okay, please bow your heads for prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for the bountiful rains last month across the state of Texas. Our landscapes are green, our lakes look better, and our wildlife is enjoying the new forbs. Thank you for this community who pulled together within hours of a member losing their home. Members provided food, shelter, clothing, and funds to help. We're blessed for these members here at Holly Lake Ranch. This week is Veterans Week. We always want to thank our veterans and those who serve and those who are in active duty today. We ask you to lead this board to make best decisions in the best interest of Holly Lake Ranch Association. In your precious name, amen.
This is my first official board meeting. It's nice to see this many people here tonight taking an interest in what's happening within Holly Lake Ranch. So thanks for coming. Madam Vice President, I'd like to make a motion that we accept and approve the meeting minutes for the October 17th, 2023 open meeting and executive session.
Have a motion. Do I have a second? Yes. Any discussion amongst the board? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 4-0. Y'all might have noticed that the president is absent today, so we're going there. Next, we have the 3-month recap. Jeff, you going to handle that one for us?
All right, good morning. Good evening, everybody. I'm on a new medication right now. All right, we're going to go through, I say this every time, and I don't think y'all ever really believe me. We're going to go through the third quarter financials here pretty briefly. We got a lot to cover tonight. The most important thing, obviously, is the budget tonight. So if you have a question about this, just kind of hold it to the end of the presentation, and I'll promise you we will answer it. First up, our revenue continues to be really good. Maintenance fees are just slightly up, about 1.4%. Golf continues to be really strong this year. We're about $1,600 below in our membership revenue, but we are $1,500 up in cart revenue, $16,000 up in green fee revenue. So good year so far for the golf course. Other revenue down there, we're hugely up. And there's a couple of things that we're going to kind of put a pin in and talk about a little bit later. We're $58,700 of that is collection fees, and $20,200 of that is late fees. So we're going to, like I said, put a pin in that. We'll talk about it toward the end of the presentation. Fines were up. Citation fines were up about $17,000. 22.7 of that 285 total is interest. So we're doing extremely well with our passive income this year. Moving on to security. There at the very top, payroll. This is one of the first years we've had in recent years where we've kind of been almost fully staffed for most of the year. So therefore, payroll is pretty close to budget. Everything else in the department is doing really well. Down there at the very bottom, vehicle. As we've talked about before, we had some pretty major expenses on vehicles this year, so we're over budget on that line item, but we're $6,200 below budget on fuel, so that's more than making up for the overage on the repair line item. So everything going very well in security. Under maintenance, again, finally kind of close to budget on payroll since we've been mostly fully staffed this year. Buildings and grounds were considerably under budget, $50,500. That's a little bit of a misnomer. We do the same thing every year. We're $23,000 below budget on street materials. We will be spending every bit of that money. We always do. We've gotten past the in-house paving that we're doing, so everything else that we'll be purchasing this year will be aggregate materials that we store over the years that can help for next year, oil, sand, road base, things of that nature. We're also $6,700 below budget in fencing, and again, our fencing is in dire need, and we will be spending every penny of that. So a lot of that $50,000 savings we have right now will be going away. Tree removal down there, $10,000 below budget. This has been a way better year than last year. That $8,600 we spent, that equates to 19 trees that we've taken out across the ranch. That's separate from the golf course. And then again, we had some major repairs that we did on some vehicles, so we were over budget on that line item, but we were $3,400 below budget on fuel there in maintenance. So again, good savings on fuel so far this year. Moving on to golf maintenance. Buildings and grounds, $16,000 below budget. $7,000 of that is our sand budget. $2,700 of it is our seed and sod budget. So John's done a very good job of making do with what he has. Again, tree removal down there. That $18,000 we've spent, that's 35 trees we've taken out across the golf course this year. I still say we have about another 40 trees that need to come out that are not direly critical, but they are kind of on the important side. George continues to help us out really well. He tries to give us almost every Tuesday of each week he dedicates to the golf course in order for us to get caught up. Utilities. This one of the few departments that we have where we're a little over budget on utilities. Most of this is electric. We had a very hot, dry summer. So that was, we spent a lot of money running that irrigation pump this summer on the golf course. That's a large part of that. Again, $900 below budget on fuel down there at the bottom under vehicle expenses. Pro shop. $6,100 below budget on buildings and grounds. We budgeted this year to replace the carpet in the pro shop. Again, kind of like our modus operandi, we wait. If push comes to shove, we were going to let that go. We haven't had any major surprises in the pro shop, so we'll probably be doing that here very quickly. So you're going to see a good chunk of that savings go away under buildings and grounds. Everything else in pro shop is doing very well. Moving on to recreation. This is one of our few outliers we have out there. Payroll and taxes. We were $4,800 over budget. Plain and simple, we were a little bit overstaffed at the pools this year. Everything else down there, supplies, $6,100 below budget. We still have some more money to spend there. Included in that supplies line item are pool supplies and pool chemicals, and we have some things that we need to purchase, and we'll be doing so here either this month or next month. But still doing very well in recreation. Restaurant, across the board, below what we budgeted, even on the utilities. So one of the things I kind of want to point out, so look down there under the total, the actual total line, $50,079. That's what it's cost for us to run that restaurant so far this year through September. And we've had the third-party contract is working out really well. You can remember what we've spent on that restaurant in years past. I think you guys would take $50,000 in a heartbeat, and we've had a really good quality restaurant up there. So we're very happy with that so far. I think Adam will probably expound on some things for next year that we already know about. Moving on to admin. Pretty much across the board, we're below budget. We're a little bit above budget on customer relations. That's more just a monthly timing thing. We have pretty much spent everything we need to spend on this year. I think we got maybe a couple $100 worth left, so we will come in on budget on customer relations. Furniture and equipment. Again, we needed a new computer in the office. One of the computers was on its last legs, and we desperately needed some chairs throughout. Not necessarily chairs that we sit in, guest chairs. When people come in to conduct business with us, they really had not very nice things to sit on. So again, we kind of waited until toward the end of the year, make sure we didn't have any surprises, and so that has actually taken place in October. You'll see that in the last quarter. Second page of administrative expenses. Professional fees. We're going to kind of put a pin in this too. So the vast majority of that $43,000 that we've spent, those are collection fees from our collection agent. So again, I want to put a pin in that, and we'll talk about it when we get to the bad debt explanation. Everything else in admin has done extremely well this year. We've pretty much below budget across the board. Moving on to HR. $41,000 below budget payroll and taxes. Again, that's where we have our group health insurance for all of our employees. Through September, we're $39,000 below budget on our group insurance. So we've done extremely well there. A little bit below budget on 401k match, which is kind of disappointing to us as an employer. We'd like for our employees to really to utilize that service that we give them, that benefit that we give them. That's pretty much everything on HR. Multi-department, the greatest termed department ever, the multi-department expenses. Let's talk about professional fees there. So there's 4 things that make up professional fees on this line item. We've got legal, we've got audit, we've got accounting, and corporate compliance. So of that, right at $120,000 we've spent so far, 68.5 of it is legal. We had the USCG arbitration case that was early in the year. We had a lawsuit that we defended in the middle of the year. We've had a lot of expenses relating to Silverleaf Holiday Inn, transfer of properties, and I'm forgetting one. Yep, I guess that's it. That's about majority of it. We have finished the audit. The audit ended up was right at $36.5 is what it costs this year. A little bit less than last year. Every year we're getting it down a little bit more and more. Corporate compliance, we've only spent about $5,000. We did most of the heavy lifting on corporate compliance last year. So, bottom line down there, we are $600,000 to the good compared to budget. Now, let's not just all jump up and down and think that's the greatest thing in the world. It's a little misleading. Again, you've heard me bang this drum for many years now. We are extremely conservative. We want to be conservative with your dollars. And so we know the things that are critical. The things that are critical we get, and they're approved in the budget, we get them when we need them. Things that, if push comes to shove, can wait for another year, we'll wait toward the end of the year to make sure we don't have any surprises before we start to pull the trigger on those items. So now we're in November, and there are things that we really need to get done, and so we will be doing that. Now that said, I think we're going to show that we're going to have a fairly healthy savings to budget this year, and a lot of it are things that you can't possibly know. We do our best to every year to come up with a truly realistic budget that also doesn't paint us into a corner too much. So we have some pivot room, but sometimes things just work out in your favor. Past couple of years, I think it was the opposite direction. This year's been a fairly good year so far. So let's move right into the collections report, and before we start taking any questions. So again, I've been trying to keep this consistent. We look at it each quarter versus the previous quarter. So you can see there that the 30-day total dollar figure went down a little bit. 60-day stayed pretty even, and the 90-day went down considerably. Well, that sounds great, right? Well, unfortunately, most of those 90 days, the reason most of that 90-day went down was because they moved into the collections part. You can look down there at the bottom. The bottom half shows you the number of accounts that are related to those dollar figures up there. See, so collections increased by 15 accounts from June until September. So Adam asked that I try to expound a little bit on bad debt, collections and bad debt, so that hopefully everybody can understand a little bit more what goes on. So obviously, in what we use out here is accrual accounting. Okay, it's not cash accounting. So every time we bill every month, all of the property owners, we recognize that as revenue right then and there. Well, that's great, right? But that's not true to life. All those bills that we send out, not all that money is going to come in, okay? And so that's where bad debt comes into play. Our total, everything that we have since this place began, less any charge-offs, is a little over $1 million of unpaid dues, fines, citations. And that's a staggering and sobering total, right? So one of the reasons we have bad debt on, if you hopefully some of y'all actually go to the website and look at the line-by-line financial statements. One of the things we have on the very first page of our P&L is a contra account below our dues, and it says bad debt expense. Okay, so that is to bring our financial statements in accordance with GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. We have to write off a certain amount of money each month because by law we can only go back 4 years on debt, so 48 months. So if we continue to bill someone who's never paid, once we bill them a 49th month, that very first month now becomes the 49th month. That has to be written off. Now there's a difference. I want to make sure everybody understands. There's a difference between writing off and charging off. Writing off means we're doing it on the financial statements, okay, in order to stay within GAAP, within GAAP principles, okay? Doesn't mean we've charged off the debt. That's the reason we still show that we have a total of about a little over $1 million. There's a chance that we could collect on some of this. A lot of it's pretty much not very likely. So that's what we do each year when we have the auditors come out. They like to look just strictly at ratios, all right? And they're going to say, you've got this much in receivables, so, and based on your historic record, this is how much we think you can actually collect. But there's extenuating circumstances. And so every year in the audit, we go back and forth, and we talk with them, well, you know, there's a couple of these accounts that you think might be bad, but we have judgments against them. But back whenever, 5, 10 years ago, we were able to get a judgment against that particular account. When you do that, the clock stops. Okay, you don't have to abide by the 4-year thing. Okay, so we're going to continue to carry that whole thing on. So we're never going to charge that off. But there's situations where a person who's greatly in debt to us passes away. It gets foreclosed on or goes to a tax sale. When that happens, and it sells either through a foreclosure or a tax sale, we're out. Unless there's money that they were able to get enough in the sale that they'll pay some of that debt off to us, we're not going to get a dime. And because the person has passed, we can't go against that person, and you know, if they don't have any heirs. So eventually we're just going to charge that off. And that's what we've done over the years. We do it when we absolutely have to. We will actually charge off an amount to make our books look appropriate, okay? But as far as write-offs, we do the write-offs according to GAAP so that our financial statements that we present are fair and accurate, but it doesn't mean that we've completely charged off that debt. We're going to do our best. Problem is, a lot of these accounts, there's not a whole lot of value. These are unimproved lots, okay? There's not a whole lot of value in some of these lots, and it costs a considerable amount of money. It costs us just to get to the point where we can actually go to court and try to get a judgment. I want to say it's like we're at $1,500, correct? Yeah, per account. And this lot may not be worth $300. So we have to make some tough choices. Do we want to spend the money to get these things back into our control so then we can hopefully sell them again and get them into the hands of someone who's actually going to pay their dues? So the finance committee, the board, management, we all go back and forth. We discuss all these different accounts one by one to try and figure out which ones do we want to go after, which ones do we think we have real value in and that we think we have a great chance of collecting on, and which ones do we just set aside and just kind of shake our head. So that's kind of a very compressed explanation of the bad debt process. Hopefully that enlightens you a little bit. But we have been very active this year in trying to get some of these accounts to the judgment step in the process. So that's the reason why our collection revenues are up on that very first page under revenue. Collection fees was way up, but then the associated collection fees are also up. And so that's kind of skewed some of our numbers on both the revenue side and the expense side. All right, I will stop talking for a minute. If you would like to ask a question about any of things that I've just discussed. Oh, before you do, one last thing. I did not put a slide up here for our cash position this year. I always like to do that in our quarterly meetings. I can tell you that our cash position is up dramatically over where it was September 30th of last year. And again, the reason I didn't do that because it's a little bit of a misnomer. We did most of our big capital projects last year in the first 3 quarters. We've got most of our big ticket items on the capital slate this year in the last quarter. So I didn't really feel like it was comparing apples to apples. We will at the end of the year. I will have a cash position slide because I think it's going to be very important for everyone to see how our cash position has improved from last year while accomplishing everything that we wanted to get done this year. I think that's going to really give a true picture of our asset management that everybody's taken part in this year. All right, if you have a question about anything financial related on this presentation, please come up to the microphone. If you'd state your name and what section you live in. It's not so everybody here can, it's so people online or not online on the video afterwards can hear. Of course, Larry.
Thanks for giving us that because we've been long due. I think the homeowners need to know just how much money is outstanding. And while some of it is vacant lots, I can tell you that some of the people that are still delinquent were delinquent when I was on the board. So it means they've lived here for 15, 20 years on each of us. So as homeowners, we need to be cognizant of the fact that we do have people that are not paying. Now, you might consider what the guys down on 20 are doing. They're going more and more to lawsuits, and they're being quite successful, particularly with people that have homes. And they found that their collections have come up considerably. It takes a little more effort. The other thing they do is they actually publish the delinquent folks, anybody that's over 30 days. So 16 up is published. There's some guidelines on that, but it might be something for the board and so on to consider, whatever it is. But we do have people that have been on this for 20 years.
Thanks, Larry.
Hi, my name's AJ. You need my last name too?
No, that's fine.
Okay. I don't see anything up there on that dredging that we were talking about before.
That's happening this quarter. In fact, I think the board talked about. Yep.
What's it going to cost?
Yep. I think it's on the agenda.
You didn't answer the question. How much is it going to cost?
Yeah.
Huh? Okay.
All right. Well, thanks for taking it easy on me tonight. Appreciate it.
All right. Next up, current focus item.